All right. You can go whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Today we have an extra special guest, Dr. Carlotta Berry. So glad to have you here. You are someone who we've been trying to get on for a while. You've been on our list for quite some time. We're like, we need to pull the trigger. So she is the NoireSTEMinist, and her current position is the Endowed Chair and Professor of Electrical and Computer Engineering at Rose Building Institute of Technology. Her claim to fame is I bring robotics and STEM to people and people to robotics to STEM in order to diversify engineering. So I love that. A bit of background. Dr. Carlotta Berry got her PhD from Vanderbilt. Sorry, I forgot to look up what field. What's your PhD in?
Electrical engineering and robotics, basically.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Got it.
That was funny.
I'm starting over, Allison.
Sorry, editor.
Dr. Berry got her PhD in a... She's used to us. Dr. Berry got her PhD from Vanderbilt in electrical engineering, specializing in robotics. Her master's in engineering is from Georgia Tech, also in electrical engineering. And she has a bachelor's from Spelman College in mathematics. So her work is about mostly... Nope. Sorry, my thing froze.
You have to start over. I want you to correct something, if that's okay.
Okay.
We can start all the way over.
I can start all the way over.
No, you don't have to start all the way over. Y'all got babies.
No,
things to do. We ain't trying to be all night. So actually,
it'll be quick.
Okay, I have a 5-year degree from Spelman and Georgia Tech, so they're both bachelor's degrees.
You have your BSMS.
My master's is actually.
You said it was. Say it again.
Actually from Wayne State. They do
I didn't know that. I thought
I have a master's in controls from in electrical engineering from Wayne State. So from Spelman and Georgia Tech, they're both bachelor's degrees.
So master's in controls.
So Spelman is math.
State.
Georgia Tech is electrical engineering. They're both bachelor's degrees. And then I have a master's degree from Wayne State. And then the PhD is Vanderbilt.
Got it. Did I know that you were at Wayne State?
Probably not. I don't talk about that a lot either.
I did it, Kyla.
I erased that out of my bio a lot too.
Wow.
I taught there for like 1 year at the end of my PhD.
Really?
I taught there. Yes, because I was in Michigan, so it was not that far down the road.
No, we could talk about this on the podcast.
Yes, we will talk about it on the podcast.
It's like,
thank you for
keeping us to get her in line, honey.
No, everybody has their role. I'm the one that gets us off task, and Jeremy keeps us on task.
He's driving the car. Okay, I'm ready.
All right, Allison, we're starting over. Welcome, everybody. Today we have an extra special guest, Dr. Carlotta Berry. She is someone who we have been eyeing for the podcast for quite some time. So glad to have you here today. Dr. Berry is the NoireSTEMinist. She is the Endowed Chair and Professor of Electrical and Computer Engineering at Rose Building Institute of Technology. Her self-proclaimed claim to fame is I bring robotics and STEM to people and people to robotics to STEM in order to diversify engineering. And that's what we're all about here at Modern Figures. A little bit of background. She got her PhD from Vanderbilt in electrical engineering, specializing in robotics. She has a master's in controls from Wayne State University. I thought I was the only person that knew where Wayne State was. Her bachelor of science is from Georgia Tech in electrical engineering, and she also has a bachelor's of science in mathematics from Spelman College through the combined engineering program. Her area of expertise includes educational mobile robotics and enhanced human-robot interfaces. So if that was not cool enough, she also does recruitment and retention activities for underrepresented populations in electrical and computer engineering. She also helped to found the Rose Building Undergraduate Diversity program, or Rosebud, that she also co-advises. Dr. Berry also helped to start and currently co-directs the multidisciplinary robotics program. She's an organizer and a judge for the FIRST Robotics competitions. One of her recent projects with students includes using mobile robot platforms to remotely command robots to perform tasks. Also, if you have not seen her on Twitter, she puts up these electrical engineering, these fun questions that you can just stay sharp with your skills on. I'm always doing them, but I'm like, I love the computer engineering part. That was kind of electrical, but I'm like, I don't want to put my answer up and be wrong, but I think this is it. But welcome to the podcast, Dr. Berry.
Thank you so much
Oh my
for having
goodness.
me. I am fangirling right now. I can't believe y'all have me on. I made it, Mama. I made it.
You know you on everybody else's podcast, so
Right.
I think we're the ones who have the privilege of having you with us today.
Aw, thank
Yes, we
you.
are
It's
fangirling for
special.
you.
Mhm.
I get so
Yeah,
tired when I
Yeah.
hear people read my bio because it either makes me feel old or it makes me feel like, did I really do all of that? Good Lord.
Mhm.
When
And
I
this
hear
is like the
mine,
stuff you're actually like actively doing, the last
Mhm.
little blob.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And actually, the things probably I'm most proud of right now, which you didn't mention, but have happened during the pandemic, really are Black in engineering and Black in robotics. Because those are the things that were
Mm.
unexpected, unplanned, unorganic. It kind of just like the social justice movement required it. And it's just like moving when you know you need to move. Cut.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well,
Did we
we
lose
lost
Kyla?
Kyla.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't have
Yeah,
my glasses on, but I was like, did we lose Kyla?
yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording, but I think that was a good stopping point. I don't
Okay.
think that they'll be able to tell that we dropped her off.
Yeah. Stop because we lost you and we wanted you here. So,
we're back.
No, you're back.
I'm back. You all did not go anywhere.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely something we have to talk about. And I know, like, for us, we didn't just one day wake up and decide we're going to be engineers.
no.
And I'm sure that you didn't one day wake up and think, you know what, I'm going to turn into a social media activist and real
Engineer,
life activist,
feminist.
right?
Yeah, not at all.
But we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So, what made you decide to pursue robotics? Like, where did this all start for you?
Right.
So I think for me, it was kind of a non-traditional thing, like most Black women or Black people in STEM. We don't have a long line of parents, aunts, uncles, role models who were in STEM or in engineering. And that's true for me. Like, it's so weird when I talk to some of my colleagues and they talk about, oh, yeah, my dad was an engineer, my uncle was an engineer. We used to put TVs together and, work on the car on the weekend. I'm like, oh, that's just so weird to me. So my mom was a school teacher.
Right. Y'all had TVs to waste. Y'all had
Right, you know
cars
what
to
I'm saying? Y'all in
waste.
there tearing up stuff in the garage. I can't even relate, okay? But so my mom was a school teacher. She was a kindergarten teacher, and my grandmother was a piano
Oh,
teacher. And I actually love teaching. I think teaching is actually my first love. And when I was little, I just decided I will also be a teacher. So I had my dollies. I gave my dollies homework. I graded their homework. Some people failed, some passed. And teaching was just always my thing. And then maybe sometime around middle school, I love math and science. So naturally, I'm going to be a math or science teacher. But it was teacher, teacher, teacher. Even when I got to like sixth grade and, you had to do like science for projects and stuff like that, I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. And I remember my mom calling her friend who had a son my age and me going over there and him, helping me with the science fair project because I was still like, nobody in my family knows how to do this STEM stuff. So he's over there helping me make like the battery and the light bulb circuit for a science fair. Maybe one year he helped me make a human brain, but that still just wasn't my
Wow.
thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I very rarely had Black teachers. And I know you had mentioned this earlier. And I remember one was in the fifth grade and she was a Miss Davis. And the only thing I really remember about her is she walked around with a baseball bat and was like, if y'all don't sit down and act like you got some sense, I'm gonna whip my bat out. She never hit anybody with the bat, but first Black teacher and had a bat. Oh, she stuck out in my mind. And couldn't get away with
She
that.
ain't playing.
She'd be under the jail. But then after my my sixth grade year, I had a Black principal, a Black female principal. And she
Mm.
told my mom, I feel like she is wasting her potential here. You need to get her in a magnet
Wow.
school. And I was like, I think I'm fine, but okay, if you say so. So after my seventh grade year, I went to a magnet school. And I think that that's kind of what made a difference because you don't know this growing up in
Mm,
quote unquote poverty with under resourced schools, but there are things that people do with you at a resource school that are just natural. So naturally
mhm.
Mhm.
giving me challenging assignments, naturally giving me homework, naturally talking to me about careers and have you considered this? So then when I went to high school, I was in a program called Inroads. And Inroads is like an internship program where they get you ready for these internships and they have someone come in and they're like, you're so good at math and science. What are you going to do? I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be a high school calc teacher. And they're like, you should consider engineering. Well, what's an engineer? Nobody talked to me about stuff like that. The train conductor, I ain't driving no train. Right.
Right.
So I had to actually,
And that hat is ugly.
right. No, there were no cell phones, no internet. I'm older than y'all. Stop playing me. Um, I had to,
No.
There was a time in life I did not have a cell phone
yeah, when you
because
were
they did not
3.
exist for public consumption.
So I
It
walked to
was
the
like ninth
library.
grade.
Yep, I walked to the library after school and I looked up engineer and I was like, yeah, it looks all right. But I was still concerned that I wouldn't like it. And I did do a couple of
Mm,
internships at Ford Motor Company working with engineers when I was in high school, but I just was not sure. So that's actually why I knew I was always going to Spelman. I was going to get an education degree and be a math teacher. So when I found out I could do a Spelman Georgia Tech thing, it worked because I was like, I can do the engineering, but I'll still have my math degree because if this stuff is some foolishness, I can still do my teaching. I did get into Georgia
yeah.
Tech from high school and I went and did
Mm,
like a
mhm.
early career at both. Spellbound was, they talked to me about the dorm life, about the class. It was a picture of my entire existence at Spelman. At Georgia Tech, we went to a
Mhm.
banquet where some PhD did a technical talk.
Lord.
I was like,
Oh.
And
I
that's
am
how you
18
attract
years
high schoolers?
old. I don't even know what this man is talking about. So that's how I kind of ended up at Spelman first because I was like, this anyway. I tell people all the time, if there had been no Spelman, I would have never graduated from Georgia Tech. So I had to do it that
Mm,
way
yeah.
because what I experienced at Georgia Tech probably would have broke me if I hadn't had 3 years at Spelman that built me up, right? Because
Mm,
walking in a
Wow.
classroom, lecturing hall, 200 people, not too many women, not too many black people, professor don't know your name, TAs do all of the tutoring, office hours in the labs. I was lost. I was completely lost. And I think
Yeah.
if I had not seen a different model for education at Spelman and a different way to be supported and get resources, I wouldn't have known what to do as an 18-year-old shy girl coming out of high school, going to Atlanta, going to Georgia Tech. So even though it was an extra year of my life to get 2 bachelor's degrees in 5 years, I wouldn't have gotten two at all if I hadn't did it that way.
wow. I mean, that's always the story that I hear from, they have the 3-2 program and like, Michigan was also one of the schools and the folks
Well,
that I, met that went through the program, they had such a confidence about their skills and abilities. And I'm like, you know what? And I had, a similar experience at a PWI where, you have this time that really gets you like confident about yourself and in your work so you can go out into the world and face
yeah,
all of the foolishness somewhere else.
absolutely.
So it's unfortunate, but so glad that, that experience even
Yeah.
existed. I want to circle back real quick. You said that you knew you were going to Spelman. Who like was there somebody in your life who like how did you know about Spelman?
So that's another crazy one. Like I said, my mom went to Tennessee State. I'm from Nashville. My mom went to Tennessee State. My mom is a Tennessee State Golden Girl. She still does stuff at
Oh,
Tennessee
cool.
State, and she's 82 now. When I was little, it was TSU homecoming. You went to the parade on Saturdays, so it was TSU, TSU, TSU. So I knew one place I wasn't going with Tennessee State. Um, but I had grew up in an HBCU household, so I had been considering Howard, and there was a young
Mhm.
lady a year ahead of me who went to Spelman, and she came back, and they called all the black girls into the auditorium, and she did a talk on her school, just to, a college talk, just to get us about. And I remember looking at her going, she is so classy. She is so poised. She is
Mm.
so refined. She got her
Mhm.
stuff together. Wherever she goes to school, that's where I want to go. And I found out she went to Spelman, and that clinched it for me. And the weird thing about it is, at that point, I still went ahead and applied to Georgia Tech, to Howard, to Vanderbilt, and a couple other places. And I got in them. And my guidance counselor, a white woman, because I worked in the guidance office, she would say to me almost every day, "I really think you should go to Vanderbilt. I really think you should go to Vanderbilt." I was like, "No, I'm going to Spelman." Once I got to Spelman, it was it. That was it. I don't care where else I get in. She was so frustrated with me not agreeing to go to Vanderbilt. She actually had me come when I came to work one day. She had the Vanderbilt recruiter sitting there to talk to me, and I could not
Wow.
completely articulate how annoyed I was, because at 18 you don't have those words. And now I do.
Mhm.
And now the high school that I went to is actually one of the number one high schools in the country. I told you, the magnet school. Um, there's a subgroup of us who went to HBCUs who are alumni of that high school, and most of us went to Spelman and Morehouse. There are some A&T and Hampton and all of that, but it turns out that that was just a thing. They felt like this college prep intense school. We're giving you guys all of this, and they felt like you're kind of giving it away by going to a HBCU,
Wasting it.
Mm.
right? But I didn't know that at the
Wow.
time. All I knew
Mm.
was like, why she's on me? I know why she on me. But we now know that's
Yeah.
what it was. They've never seen HBCUs as
Yeah.
equivalent, as enough, if that makes sense. I did a podcast one time in
Mhm.
Georgia, where it was a family and the dad had gone to a HBCU, and my husband actually feels this way as well. So it's not like that's rare, and he did not want his daughter to go to one. We have a couple of students at my school now whose
Wow.
dads or parents went to HBCUs, who wanted them, particularly at my school. So even people who've gone to HBCUs do not want their children to go because of either a negative experience they had there, or they weren't able to get the career tracks that they chose. So I've done podcasts about teaching and going to both PWIs and HBCUs and the pros and cons of each. And I say, all things being equal or unequal, I still want my child to go to a HBCU. And I just think there is
Yeah.
something you get there that a black or brown student, especially in STEM, may not get at a PWI. And I've mentored plenty of them, and I've seen it. And when everything's going great, you're fine. PWI doesn't matter. But when you start running
Mhm.
into roadblocks and looking around for somebody in that support, that's where you have problems. I even
100%.
I think I heard you mention Michigan. I even had when I was in I used to
Mhm.
work at Ford in Michigan, and I used to do talks for
Mhm.
inroads and DAPSEP. And there was a young lady
Oh, wow.
who went,
Yes,
yeah,
Step Step, Jason Lee.
yep. I used to do talks for DAPSEP, and there was a young lady from Michigan, and I'll never forget. She was like a freshman, and she was just like, she was an engineering student, and she just like, I just need some advice from you about how to survive. And she just looked so down. And I was like, I guess I didn't even understand. I'm like, talk to me
Oh.
and tell me what's going on. She was just like, it's just so competitive. She's like, I can't even get sick. And I was like, I don't understand. What do you mean you can't get sick?
Yeah.
She was like, nobody will give you their notes because they don't want you to blow the
Mhm.
curve.
Mhm.
If you miss class, they won't tell you what happened. And she just like, it's so competitive that it just kills me. And I could not even relate. Because even at Georgia Tech, as rough as it was, I guess because I figured out how to work the system before it got real bad, I didn't know it was like that. Because,
Mhm.
because HBCU,
Mm.
it may be cliche, but it's a family. You go
Yeah.
to class and they know that Marissa is my roommate. They be like, "Where Marissa at?" I'm like, "Oh, she overslept." Your professor be like, "Go get
Mhm.
her up and bring her butt to class. Go wake her up and come back."
Oh,
That's where I
Right.
went to school.
Go get her.
Right. So I can't even relate to
Yeah.
that, you know. And that's why
yeah.
no matter.
I think so, like,
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I was gonna say our experiences, we both went to PWIs, but we both were in bridge programs that
Mhm.
were designed for underrepresented students. So, like, we had that community in those classes.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
Correct.
if we weren't there, they knew we
Your
weren't there.
community
They
should
Yeah.
made
carry you.
sure to
Yeah.
get the notes for
Yeah.
us. Yeah.
And it's just now
And
dawning on me that the people who created the program were all from HBCUs, and the way
mhm,
you're like, "Oh, yeah, if this person's not here, here are the notes. That is your
mhm.
roommate. What are you doing?
Go
Like, you
get
are
them.
your brother's
And
keeper."
see,
Like,
that's
that
what
was
I tell
instilled
my
in us.
students. So my school, I'm the NASB advisor. There's not a lot of them. Our school
Me
only has.
too.
Are you
Aw.
really? Well, they started asking me to be the NASB
Mhm,
advisor the minute I walked on campus as the only Black woman engineering
mhm.
professor. There are 4 or 5 men. Most of them are African. A couple of them are American. But I told them until I get tenure, I will not be the NASB advisor because I just cannot have y'all stereotyping me up in here like this with all this service. I got to get
Yeah.
mine first because I mean I did that at
Mhm.
Tennessee State, and that was one of the things that did burn me out. Is I was so busy pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring into the students that I had some health issues and I emptied myself out. And I now know that, like they say on the plane, I had to put my
Mhm.
mask on first and make sure I could breathe before I can breathe for you. So now that I have tenure and I have full, I'll be the
Yeah.
NSB advisor till I retire. It doesn't matter. But one of the things I tell them is I know you guys didn't go to a HBCU, but you have got to learn how to make that HBCU experience amongst yourselves. Like sometimes it's a little bit too much
Yeah.
backbiting, a little bit too much gossiping, a little bit too much of who doing what to who, and not enough of academic excellence and tutoring and like that. I understand you may be one of only two in class,
Yeah.
but you two need to be studying together and you two need to have each other's phone numbers. So you're exactly right.
Mhm.
That's what I'm giving to my students. And then we have a whole nother community of Black students, at least at my school, who don't want anything to do with NASB. They don't want to be affiliated with anything Black. They don't even want
Yep.
to identify them as Black.
Yeah.
That's real.
And I tell them, I don't care. I'm here for all of you, right? I'm rooting for all of you. And
But don't
I'm
come here for these Black resources, though.
right. Well,
Stay not
let me
Black
tell
when
you
you
one
get
of
in
my
trouble.
favorite
Stay
stories
not
about
Black
that.
when something ain't working.
So one of my favorite stories about that was there was a young lady, and she was half Black. Her mom was Black, her dad was white, very quiet, didn't really affiliate too much with the Black students, the NASB, whatever. And then for some reason, her senior year, she decided she wanted to go to convention. So she started kind of hanging with the NASB students because she wanted to go to convention. And when she got back, she said to me, we went to Anaheim that year, I think. So this is like 5 or 6 years ago. And she said, I
Mhm.
wish I had been with NASB from the very beginning. This experience, my senior year, has changed my life. And I think what it is they're just so
Mm.
Wow.
used to being pointed out and targeted in the class. Like the professor always gonna know your name. You one of the only two little dots in here that some students don't want to affiliate with anything Black. So like we already are targeted and highlighted, hyper visible already. So I would prefer to just
Mhm.
distance myself from y'all. But then, like Kyla said, let some stuff go down. They in my office. What's it gonna do? What's it gonna do? Well, welcome.
Mhm.
Glad you're here. Right.
Right. I'm glad you're Black today.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Ooh, I got one more
Oh
story,
my
and then I'm gonna let
goodness.
y'all ask y'all questions. I had a friend in high school. There was a guy in high school, same thing, biracial, did not talk to the Black students, did not affiliate with us, did not, cafeteria, didn't eat with us, nothing, nothing, nothing. And then when it was time to graduate, he won like I want to say all of the diversity awards.
Wow.
We're like, you have
Wow.
applications for this stuff? He did. He wanted to be Black
Right.
anyway.
Black and convenient.
Mhm.
That's okay.
Mhm.
It's okay. We still accept them on and flaws and all.
We do. We
You
do.
do.
We do.
Because no, we
Okay.
do.
We do.
We
We
do,
do.
I guess.
Uh,
We do because they
because
come
I
full
mean,
circle, like that
we
young
don't know
lady
each
I was
other's
telling you about.
struggles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's gonna be my daughter too, to
Yours
be
gonna be
honest.
Black in
Yeah.
the beginning.
My daughter doesn't go to
You
school.
just don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. My daughter doesn't go to school with a lot of
What?
Black and brown people either. So I could see her
Oh.
when she
Oh, I
goes.
thought you said she'll go to school. I was like, "What?"
What?
Yeah. No, well, no, she's 14, but because of where we live in
Mhm.
Indiana, she does not have
Yeah.
any Black friends at all. And she may have a few biracial ones, but normally that's not even Black and something. That might be Hispanic and white or something else. So I could see her going to college and not being all that comfortable or familiar with Black people. And so it might take her a minute.
I could see that.
And so, we gonna work her
Mhm.
in though, because she got to know where her community is and where her resources are. But I could see her being like a
That's what my
business.
parents did for me.
Right.
They took me across town to the Black community, and they were like, "You gonna go to this Black YMCA,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you gonna get your full culture, cause
Right.
otherwise, I would never see us.
Yeah,
So
well,
I totally
we did
understand
Mocha
that.
Moms, when she was little, just because I wanted her to see some Black people. So we did Mocha Moms, and then I did something similar like to your parents. I put her in some Girls Inc. programs. Girls Inc. was in the city in Indianapolis,
Mm.
Black and brown kids. But the main thing people kept telling me to do, and I don't know who listens to this podcast, but they weren't showing me no love, is people like, you need to put her in Jack and Jill. I didn't realize that there was a secret
Oh
cheat
yeah.
code to get in Jack and Jill because I couldn't get a phone call from them. So I gave up on the Jack and Jill.
Mm.
So, but yeah, I didn't have the secret sauce.
I'm
Mm.
not one.
So
You could have been one, Jeremy.
I could have been one. My mom is very frugal, and I'll leave it at that.
I didn't
I
even
didn't
know
know what
that.
Jack and Jill was till I got to
I didn't
grad
even know you
school.
had to pay for it. I thought it was just like a community building, Black kids hanging out kind of thing. I didn't know, but like I said, I couldn't even get a phone call back. So obviously, I didn't meet the standard either.
All right. So
What did we end on? We
she was talking
ended.
about her daughter
Yes. I'm just trying to get a good
and how Jack and
transition.
Jill went up the hill.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's all I can think about is toddler nursery rhymes.
Aw.
Right.
How old is your baby? 3, 2, 3,
Two,
2. Oh, that's sweet.
2 and 2 months almost.
Oh,
But she talks to people like she's 16.
5, like she was
that
5.
that means
16.
she has intelligent parents, and that is wonderful. That's one thing I had a
Yes.
girlfriend told me
Mhm.
that always stuck with me, even though it was another 20 years before I had a baby. Is she said, "Don't ever baby talk your child." She's like, "You always talk to
Mhm.
them
Yeah.
in full and complete sentences, no baby talk." And I
Mhm.
remember my daughter's Kennedy, and when she was a baby, we used to do those my baby can read videos with those big words and all that.
Mhm.
And my parents, my husband's parents were like, "Why are y'all doing this? Y'all are talking way over this child's head." And then when she was like 2 years old, and I picked her up from daycare, and they were like, "Do you know she's reading the names on the cubbyhole?" That's because I didn't baby talk her.
Wow.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Don't
That's
Right.
play with
right.
me.
That's
No,
right.
she picked up my coaster and said, "Hexagon." Like, I'm like, "Okay, look, girl." I was
And
like,
and
"Okay,
that's exactly
this
what
one is special."
happens. You elevate them. You talk to
Mhm.
them where they're going. Exactly. You doing the thing,
Yep.
honey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm trying, but my parents are here too,
Oh, good.
and I told them they're not allowed to baby talk her as well, and so she's picking it from us and picking up from them. But yeah, most people think she's 5
Wow. I'm glad you have parents
because
who
she's
know
She
how
has
to.
a
kinda
great
tall.
vocabulary. She has a really good
Oh,
vocabulary.
yeah. I'm glad you
Mhm.
have parents who know how to stay in line. I did not have that benefit, but they also don't live in Indiana.
I
So
mean,
I just deprogrammed her after weekends with the grandparents. Because
they,
they're Southern. They think they know better than you do. Like to this day, my mama will talk about my child needs a perm every 5 minutes. She will never have a perm in her head. You can
Oh
give
my
her that.
gosh.
oh.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the generation next
Before
to them.
yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm a generation below, so,
Right.
like, you're
Well, you guys
closer
are
to
younger
my
than me.
parents than
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just like, y'all
yeah.
talking crazy now. We're not doing all of that.
No, my mom was definitely she needs a perm generation, and I'm like,
Hmm.
"I don't want one." And I remember going to the hairdresser with a hat on, and I was like, "You have to cut this hat off if I'm literally like this in the chair, like, you have to cut this
Yeah,
hat
yeah,
off to give
yeah.
me a relaxer." It was a thing.
My
It was a
mother-in-law
whole
would
thing.
tell me
I
every
wasn't allowed to.
other week, "I don't really like those plaits in your hair." I'm like, "First of all, they're locks. They're not plaits, boo." And they just
Right.
don't know.
And also, they're not on your head, so how about let's not concern ourselves with
Yeah.
things that don't matter with us.
We are so far beyond
Alright,
I'm
mental.
just
let's get into the actual subject at hand.
no, I was just thinking about, you mentioned your daughter and, school and how she's navigating that, and I was wondering if you had any people who were really influential when you were younger that helped you get, into college or even while you were in college helped you kinda navigate getting into grad school. Because like, how did you get into grad school?
Yeah. It was weird. It was very weird. So Starting with high school, other than Inroads, which I would say was the mentoring program, I didn't have a lot. Like I said, my mom,
Mhm.
this was all uncharted
Mm.
territory for my mom. My mom grew up in Nashville. My mom went to Tennessee State. At the time when she was growing up, they still had Jim Crow. So that's what all the black kids in Tennessee did or Nashville did, is she
Mhm.
went to Tennessee State or Fisk. So uncharted territory, me going to Spelman, me leaving Nashville, my brother being a graphic artist and going to school in Columbus, Ohio. All of this was new to my mom. So no, high school was kind of like the blind leading the blind. I actually wrote a blog on this, is
Mm.
that you can be what you cannot see, but it's more difficult, but it's not impossible. And it does not mean that you shouldn't try,
Mhm.
but that's also why we need to work hard to become those mentors and role models so those behind us can be what they can see, and we can make them aware of those obstacles so their journey was a little bit easier than ours. So same thing, Spelman. There was a WISE program, Women in Science and Engineering, NASA Scholars. I didn't know about any of these programs at Spelman, even though I was going to had every
Hmm.
intention of being an engineer from the day I walked in the door. So what did that mean? That meant my journey
Wow.
was a lot harder than a lot of my classmates. I graduated with major debt. They did not, because they were in WISE programs and the NASA
Mm.
scholars, and they worked as an intern at NASA. I mean, I had internships at Inroads in the summer, but that literally was just enough to pay for my books. So the whole time I was at Spelman and at
Wow.
Georgia Tech, I sometimes worked 2 and 3 jobs. So I'm working fast
Oh my
food, I'm
goodness.
working at
Wow.
Mrs. Fields, I'm tutoring people in the math lab. And so I would tell people my grades were not a reflection of my ability, but a reflection of the fact that I was poor and that I was broke and that I was dividing
Yeah.
time,
Mm.
working at a video store, working in the dining hall at Georgia Tech, doing things just so I could eat. When I finally moved off campus at
Mm.
Spelman,
Yeah.
it wasn't because I wanted to live off campus, it's because I couldn't afford to pay the housing anymore. So all of
Oh my
those things
goodness.
happened because I did not have a mentor. And I don't think my first real mentor showed up until I was at Ford. I hated my job at Ford, but I had a colleague who had a PhD in engineering, black guy. He was African. I
Mhm.
had never met a black person with a PhD in engineering, because although Gary May was
Mm.
at Georgia Tech when I was a student, I never met Gary May. I didn't know he was there. And there was one other black guy who was
Wow.
Mhm.
there when I was at Georgia Tech, but he left within a year. So I didn't know any black engineering PhDs. And so when I found out I could get a fellowship to go to Wayne State to get my master's degree, and they were like, you have to have a recommendation letter. I didn't have anybody to get it from. My grades coming out of Georgia Tech were a 2.5. And I didn't have any relationship with any of the
Mm.
professors because I had been miserable while I was there. So my colleague at work with the PhD wrote my recommendation letter. And then the other
Aw.
That's awesome.
right. And then I got the other one, I think, from a girlfriend who was an engineer at GM. And luckily Wayne State wasn't paying that much
Hmm.
attention and they let me in. Um, and, and the good thing about that is I now had money and resources so I could go to school without dividing my time. So I had a 4.0 at Wayne State. And I think
Mm.
if not for that, I wouldn't have gotten into Vanderbilt. Because if they went back and looked at my
Mhm.
undergrad grades, it was going to be like, I don't think so. So my first mentor
Wow.
was my coworker, only because my coworker
Wow.
Yeah.
looked like somewhere that I wanted to be. Now, all these years later, my first career mentor is Stephanie Adams. I was tweeting about her yesterday because she did a presentation at University of Florida. And
Yeah, we were
She
there.
was with us.
Yes.
oh, really? Oh, very cool. Yeah, I was tweeting about that because
Yes.
I was at I started at Tennessee State in 2003, and I had gone to a QEM, something for minorities. I don't even remember what it stands for
Mhm.
anymore. But she was the keynote
Mhm.
speaker there. And I was like, oh my God, black woman, PhD in engineering. Still didn't know any, right? And so I walked up and started talking to her and I was like,
Right.
will you be my mentor? Didn't even know what that meant. And all she really did for me the first couple of years was listen to me vetch and moan about how miserable I was at my job. And then eventually she was just like, you're gonna let that job kill you. And when you die,
Mm.
they are going to basically come to your funeral and then post your job the next day. And she said to
Mhm.
me, "You
If
are
they
killing."
wait that
If
long.
they
They
wait
ain't
for
waiting that
She was
long.
just like, "You're killing yourself for these students, but there's some things going on in your career that are just not gonna work." And I just like,
Mhm.
I will share with you, I'm not about to cry, by the way, but what finally was the decision point for me was I had a miscarriage, and, it was stress, I made it
Mm.
out of the first trimester, and so they were just kinda like, "We're not really sure what
Wow.
happened," and I was like, "Stress,
Mm,
a lot of stress," and so that's what
Mm.
finally did it for me, where I said, "I wanna be here for my people. I got my PhD for my people, but I can't be here for my people like this, and there will be Black and brown students
mm,
at my school that's a PWI that I can help just as well. But if me being here is
Mhm.
affecting my health, my marriage, my mental stability, it's time for me to go." And it was Stephanie's advice that finally
yep.
got me to
Yeah.
leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dr. Adams.
Dr.
Mhm.
Adams.
Yeah.
We were
I
just
try not
hanging
to
out with her
bother her too much
yesterday, and she's
now.
such a wealth of advice.
Yeah. And and
Oh,
and
she busy.
I
Oh,
try to
yeah,
be
she
the type
busy,
of
busy.
mentor that she is. So, like, I've mentored undergrads, grad students, PhD students, new professors, colleagues at my school and at other places, and I try to be the mentor to people that she is to me. I don't call as much as I used to,
Mhm.
obviously, because my career is kinda now where it is, but when I call, she always answers, and she always is straight, no chaser. And that's what I like, and that's what I want to be
Yep.
for other people,
Mm.
because it is not helpful for me to, kind of mumble through and be like, "Girl, I don't think that's a good idea." But I will tell you this: I am an advisor. I'm not a teller. So no matter what you decide to
Mhm.
do, I will respect that. But this is how I feel about it. I do the same for my students. I've had some
Yeah.
students come to me, ask for some advice, and I go, "I don't think that's a good idea." One Black young man, I never forget, he said, "I want to graduate on time, but I failed a couple of classes, so I'm taking 20 hours every quarter all the way out." And I was like, "In engineering, that's not a good idea." He's like, "No,
Sir, no.
I want to graduate with my class, and I want to graduate in 4 years." I was like, "I don't think that's a good idea, but you're grown. You do what you want." He did it. He passed. He
Mm.
graduated on time, and he came back to me and said, "You told me not to do it." And I said, "I sure." And he was also on the
Ooh,
basketball team. He was on the basketball team. I said, "I sure did.
wow.
And you proved me wrong, and I give you much respect." So, but I'm gonna always
Wow.
tell you how I
That's
feel and what I
incredible.
think. I didn't think it was a good idea, and I still don't, but he did it, right? He didn't sleep, but he did it.
Right.
Yeah. And right, at what cost to his
Right.
body? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So
Yeah.
we talked about you going into grad school until you get in a PhD. But no, let's back up to Wayne State. What is a master's of controls?
So it's actually electrical engineering. So when I worked at Ford, I was an
Okay.
automation and controls engineer. So controls is basically when you design a system to act the way that you want it to act. So you don't have to do robotics, but robotics is kind of my area. But for example, your washing
Mm-hmm.
machine, right? If you turn it on dry or spin or rinse or whatever, it has to do certain things. So that's a control system. A control system is I input something and I expect it to do what I want. The example I use with my students when I teach controls is driving, right? When you get in your
Mm-hmm.
car, you as a human being are the input to the system, but there's also electronics in your car that have to happen, such as when you push the accelerator, you expect certain things to happen. If you push a brake, you expect certain things to happen. Or if you put it on cruise control, you expect it to stay at a certain speed. But then I talk to them about open loop and closed loop control is when you start texting or you turn your head to look at the baby in the back seat, that's open loop control because you don't have your eyes on the road anymore, and so the car starts drifting into the middle lane or goes over into the shoulder and things like that. So that's basically what a controls engineer is. So for my master's, I took a control system that was in the plant where I worked. It was a windshield plant for cars, and I designed a controller for it. So that's why it's an electrical engineering master's, but the focus was on controls.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
That's not my ministry, but I love that. I
I
love
love
that
when
we
you
have
say things aren't your
Carlottas in the
ministry.
world.
Yes.
I stole that one, Jeremy. I be using it now too. I stole that from you. Oh, honey, that's not my ministry.
It's
No,
not.
Mm-mm.
What
Mm-mm.
are y'all?
Everybody gets it
I
when you
never what
say
kind of
it.
engineers are you?
So I am a computer scientist slash
Oh, computer
my master,
science.
I mean, my PhD is in computer science and engineering. Not
Okay.
sure what that means, but
So you're more
but
computer
classically
science.
trained computer scientist.
Okay.
I'm more computer science, but my first PhD student was electrical engineering. I do have joint faculty status there because my research is like a bridge between, it's a lot of signal processing.
Okay.
So it's like
Okay.
that area of electrical. So his dissertation was largely signal processing and a little bit of, I would say a good amount of automation, but
Okay.
mostly signal processing and some simulation too, a lot of MATLAB, but then it's
Yeah.
also computer
That was what my
science,
master's
and then it's
was.
also
Yeah.
perceptual science.
Yeah, I
Oh,
simulated my master's thesis in
okay.
MATLAB. I took the stuff from the actual
Mhm.
system and put it in MATLAB, simulated it, and then made a controller to see
Mm.
how it changed. Because you know they weren't gonna let me do nothing on the real plant floor because the plant floor don't go down.
On the
They can't take
actual right,
correct. They can't take the plant down. So that's what I did. I took some data from the plant,
right.
put it in MATLAB, and then simulated if I did it in the controller, what
Mhm.
would happen. And then Jeremy, you're a chemical engineer, right? Is it chemical?
I'm a civil engineer,
Civil
so
engineer.
I
Okay.
mhm,
Because I'm trying to give you an
and
example of
within
controls in
civil
civil engineering.
engineering
Yeah.
oh, I fully understand.
It's just
So
not for me.
I actually my research is more well, I'm more of like a material scientist
Okay.
embedded in civil engineering. So I
Okay.
did like materials research in civil engineering.
Yeah.
So looking at asphalt was my
Okay.
PhD, but I did like my master's focused on research that was in concrete, so Portland cement concrete. Two very different materials in terms of their behaviors, but
You know
yeah,
I don't
I'm
know the difference
a
between asphalt and
strange
concrete, right?
I uh-huh. So,
Is that
yeah,
normal? Is that a
one
lot of people?
that is very normal. Most people think that they're the same.
I don't know the difference because when you said no, that was an
Yeah.
asphalt and concrete, and I was like, I thought that was the same thing. I'm not gonna lie. One
No,
of them's black.
asphalt
Black.
is a viscoelastic material.
Yeah,
Yes.
asphalt.
Okay.
Yeah,
Asphalt is
so it's
asphalt
never
black. Yeah.
fully solid or never quite all the way liquid. It exists somewhere in between,
That's
which is very
interesting.
interesting.
Well, like, that's why on a hot
Yeah.
day you can like see that like the little liquefied looking spots
Mhm.
Mhm.
when you're driving. Look at you teaching
Mhm.
me some stuff up in
Mhm.
here.
It's all about STEM is everywhere.
Yeah, it
That
is.
is
So,
cool.
yeah, and then if you ride in a concrete road, typically most bridges are have concrete decks, but there are a lot of concrete roads too. So those are the roads that you go over where you hear the bumps, you go boom, boom, boom,
Mhm,
Yeah.
boom,
mhm,
boom, boom, because those roads have expansion cracks in them that
mhm.
allow the concrete to expand and contract in the winter with the cooling air temperatures. So to mitigate cracking. That's why you have those expansion cracks. So usually like flexible pavement and asphalt pavement, you don't
Mhm.
ever have those
I love it. I
unless there's
love
an
it.
issue. So,
Very cool.
yep, I'm a nerd in that space.
Aren't we all? I
But
love it.
yeah, I teach a class that's like intro to design, and we do Arduino Uno
Mhm,
uh, microcontrollers, and they
Mhm.
learn how to code in an online platforms. They do block coding.
mhm, mhm. Tinkercad?
So they get kind of exposure to a little bit of everything. Yep, Tinkercad circuits.
Mhm.
They do solid modeling. It's a lot of fun
What kind
to
of
have a
projects do
class
you
where
do
it's
with
like
the Arduino?
multidisciplinary.
Do you somehow tie the Arduino
They're
project
doing
to
all sorts of
civil?
things. Yeah, so they are given design prompts if they do like a final design project, and so like the half of the course is them learning the concepts, and then the other
Mhm,
half of them is applying it to real world scenarios. So we give them different prompts that they can choose from. One being like you're designing a toy for a child that has a physical disability,
mhm,
and they have to define the disability, and we usually say gross or fine motor skill
mhm,
development, and they have to design something out using their Arduino that has at least one input and two outputs um, for them to use to develop the skill that they need. Another is for like assisted living for elderly populations, and how
mhm,
do you design something that supports them living independently. And yeah, so we have prompts like that, and they get to create different 3D printed parts to use for that. So that's where the solid modeling comes in. So it's an interesting
And I want to
course.
take the class. We
I
The
need
do
to do some
classroom
too.
is
stuff like that.
beautiful. Yeah.
And one of the few things I still don't know how to do, and it's on my summer list, but it may not happen, is learning how to do 3D prints. I think I'm gonna have to buy me a 3D printer for my birthday present. That's so nerdy,
You
but that's what I
Take
should.
good
want for my birthday.
ventilation.
I want a 3D printer for my
The
birthday.
fumes will knock you out.
The
Really?
fumes may not knock you. You just need a
I
room
just know we got in trouble for having a 3D printer inside at Clemson because you're supposed to have a specific kind of like
Really?
air
exhaust or air
exchange.
exchange.
Oh, well, this
So
was
I
gonna
would
be in
just
my
say check
house,
that
so
part
I
first.
better work on that. Yeah, I was gonna put it in
You
like
yeah,
I
in
was
you
supposed
can
to
here
put it in the
actually.
garage or something.
Yeah, I may need to do that.
No, they have they okay, depending on the type of model you
Yeah,
use,
I'm
you
just saying just
might need.
double check the ventilation stuff
Mhm,
just to
Okay.
mhm.
make sure.
Yeah, because that's gonna be in my house. That's not
Get
even
a
gonna be
But
on
Prusa.
campus. That's my home birthday present.
I want one too, but anyways.
But, like, speaking of stuff that, like, inspires us and learning, so you're at Wayne State, and then all of a sudden you said, "Vanderbilt, it's on my radar." Like, where did that transition come from?
Because I
It was that guidance counselor.
yeah, honestly, it was not, and it is so crazy and it's so full circle that I didn't even realize until I was at Vanderbilt, like, oh my God, I ended up where that chick wanted me to go anyway. Had totally forgot about her all those years later. But this just shows how much a lot of my life is just kind of organic. Me ending up in Michigan was organic because I did not want to
Mm,
move to Michigan. I'm from Nashville, and there was a Ford motor plant in Nashville, and they would not hire me to go
Mm,
back to the Nashville location because they said they had a hard time promoting engineers because they did not want to leave Nashville and move to Michigan, which is where the majority of Ford headquarters and plants
uh,
were. So I ended up in Michigan, and one of my really good friends ended up in Nashville. She was from Michigan, and they made a swap basically because they wanted us to get used to
wow.
moving. So that's how I ended up in Michigan. And
wow.
so I hated it. It was so cold. Some of my best friends I met in Michigan, love them to this day. They were the bridesmaids in my wedding, but it was just so freaking cold.
It
So
was
my
really
main thing
cold.
when I
It was
wanted to
so
get my
cold.
PhD was I was going back to warm weather. And it just so happened to be I got into the robotics lab at Vanderbilt, but I would have gone back to Atlanta, Florida, anywhere. I just could not stand the cold. I'm a summer baby, and I just could not
Mhm.
take how cold it was in Michigan. I hated it. And also, I needed to be
Are
back with
you a Gemini?
a little bit who I'm a Cancer, but I had to be back with people who were a little bit warmer.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm a 4th of July baby, and,
Mm.
I had to just connect with
Oh,
people
that's
Aw.
warm.
cool.
Yeah.
Makes sense, makes sense. No, I was in DC, so, like, I didn't mind the Michigan cold, but, like, the cold that we had for a week in DC was, like, 2 months in Michigan, so
I'm from Florida. I stay here. I ain't leaving.
Yeah.
Someone gonna have to pay me real money to move.
Yeah, absolutely.
hilarious. Hilarious.
I mean it. I mean it. Okay, so I just we need to pause.
Yeah, that was the first time, and then
Okay.
Well, okay, so I think where we were, let me think.
you ended up there, full circle moments in life.
What?
How life became full circle. She returned
Oh,
at the
with
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt?
Yeah, with
Yeah,
the guidance
Yeah.
counselor.
that's
Yeah,
where we ended,
yeah,
or around where
Mm.
we ended.
yeah.
Okay, okay. So I just want to clarify something before we get into some more of this conversation. You were a full-time engineer while you were getting your master's degree at Wayne State.
I was.
That's right.
So right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
interestingly enough, I worked as a controls engineer. I worked nights because I tell my students
Oh
there
my
is no
god.
silo of disciplines anymore. Like, so as soon as I got there, they were like, you're an electrical engineer, but you don't know enough about mechanical, you don't know enough about maintenance, you don't know enough about plant engineering. So the way I had to learn that is
Hmm.
I had to go on midnights because that's when they did all the maintenance because the line can't go down during the day. So I would go to work about 11
Mhm.
o'clock at night and get off about 7 o'clock in the morning. I had decided when I was a student at Georgia Tech that I was going to get my PhD and teach engineering because I didn't like the way I was taught engineering. I didn't like my lack of role models. I
Mm,
didn't like the way that that engineering was not being taught in an approachable way. And I had even taken a robotics class while I was at Georgia Tech, but only the grad students touched the robot. We learned the theory, we could write the code, but we couldn't get any hands-on experience. So I knew there was a better way to teach.
Hmm.
So while I was at my job, I was just like, I don't like this working in the middle of the night, because some of my other friends who were engineers at Ford, they worked in the design lab, designing the cars. They worked in a cubicle. I didn't mind working in a plant, but why I got to be here in the middle of the night? And then also, when you do manufacturing, lines can't ever go down. And what that means is that it could be 3:30 on Friday, and I just got off work that morning. I got to go back in if the robot goes down or if the line goes down. So even though I
Mhm.
was making a
Mhm.
whole lot of money, I was a slave to the job, right? So I tell students all the time, pick a
Mhm.
career you love. Don't pick a career by money, because I was making money hand over fist, but I couldn't spend any of it because I was up in work all the time. So, I had relatives, including my mother, who were like, I can't believe you're considering going back to school. Haven't you had enough of school yet? No, because I want my PhD. And two, because I'm not going to be doing this the rest of my life. So when I first started at Wayne
Mhm.
Yeah.
State, I was going to class.
Can I interject for a
Yeah, go
minute?
ahead, go ahead.
Like, I just wanna say, you had some real cute pictures, though. Like,
Mhm.
the hard hat photos of you. You were, like, into magazines. I saw it. I seen
Yes.
it. I know
And we're
it's
gonna
real.
put it if
Aw,
you're listening, we're gonna put this on the episode,
aw,
webpage.
thank you.
They were inspiring.
But
Mhm.
yeah, I also had some misogynoir issues while I was at Ford as well. And one of the main ones I had
Mm.
was from a black woman, and that devastated me, because we talked about mentors and role models before. She was a black
How?
she was a black woman engineering manager, and she worked in the corporate office. So because I worked in the plant and I could be crawling under equipment, I could be putting a robot together, I could be trying to get a line running, I kept my hair braided and I wore jeans and t-shirts to work. I dressed exactly like all of the white male engineers I worked with. There was only other one black engineer, and it was a
Mhm.
woman. And she came up there, respectability politicking me, and said, if you ever want to get anywhere in this company, you need to dress like you want to go. You need to take those braids out of your hair, and you need to dress a little bit nicer.
Uh-uh.
And in my mind, I'm going, boo, I go home with oil on my shirt. I go home with dirty
Right.
hair from
Right.
laying up under a conveyor belt. Are you crazy? And once again, being young, I really looked up to
That's a
her,
mess.
and I was devastated, completely devastated, that she not only
Mm.
criticized my hair, but my dress, when I'm dressing like all the white men. So that was one thing negative that
Right.
happened from a black person, and that I didn't
Mm.
expect. The stuff happening with the white people, I kind of got used to it. When I mentioned to one of them that I really wanted to someday get my PhD and teach engineering, they went back and told my boss she doesn't really want to be here. She's not serious about staying. She wants to be a school teacher. So they kind of took my words out of
Are you
context.
serious?
But it was the black woman and the hair that hurt me worse than anything else. So yeah, it was a full circle
You
moment.
be your own people sometimes.
To be your own people. So about a year after being at Wayne State, I was falling asleep in class, because I would go to class from like 6 to 10. Then I would go immediately to work from 11 to 7, sleep for a little while, and then get up and do my homework. And it was just not sustainable. So after about a year, there was a professor there who advertised with the NSBE Detroit Alumni Extension that he had received a fellowship for a grad student, but it could only go to a black person. So I took a leave from my
Hmm,
job at Ford, and
interesting.
I finished my last year without working, with zero intention of returning to Ford. But because my mama says you never quit a job without having a job, I took a leave knowing I wasn't going back. And so one thing that one thing that I preach to my NSBE students as well is, because our school has recruiters who will put out little placards that says only 3.0 and higher apply for internships and jobs. I tell them, go to the NSBE convention if you want a job, because if you go to the NSBE convention, they just want black and brown students, and they're not so legalistic about GPAs, because I know for a fact I didn't have that GPA and I knew my stuff, because your GPA, once again, is not a reflection of your ability to do or your intelligence or your success. So I'm now finishing grad school, and I'm getting my PhD. So I'm still just kind of chilling. I got money to live until I get in grad school. I went to the NSBE convention in Kansas City because I wanted to go and see the Negro Baseball League, right? And I'm walking around the NSBE Convention Center. I went with the Wayne State NSBE chapter. And this guy had something on the table, and I don't know what it was. It was something like a squeeze ball or something. I was like, I want one of those. He's like, give me a resume. I was like, I ain't got no resume. I don't even need a job, to be honest. I want one of those. He's like, you don't give me a resume, you can't have whatever that knickknack is. I went and printed out a
Mhm.
resume just to give to him to get the thing off the table and got a job. So I did a year. So I did a year at Detroit Edison
Wow.
before I went to grad school at
Wow.
Vanderbilt. Just because once they gave me the job, I was like, I guess I need to take it for a minute or something. But I knew I wasn't going to stay.
Mhm.
So as soon as I
That
finished
is
my thesis, I left.
hilarious. You like
Mhm. But that's why I tell my NASB students now, like I went to the career fair and I didn't get an interview. Take your butt to the NASB convention. You'll get something. That's what I tell them. I got a job when I
Mhm.
wasn't even
mhm,
trying to get a job. Go to the NASB convention.
right.
Nesby could be a whole episode for me,
It really
so
could.
maybe like a whole series if we're being honest.
It could. Absolutely.
So I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole, but I do want to know like what it was that drew you into research. Like we talk a lot on this podcast about people and their career trajectories, and it's yours was a bit more circuitous.
Yeah, it
It
was.
definitely wasn't a straight
Yeah.
line, right? Like you were like working but not working, and then working again, and then
Not
like,
working.
oh, you
Getting
know
jobs
what?
by accident and then
Right, right, right. Like I said,
Getting jobs by
I feel
accident. Yeah.
my career was not because I didn't have a lot of mentors, right? I didn't meet Stephanie till later. I didn't meet Ayana Howard till later.
Mhm.
So, because I think Ayana, it was like my
Oh,
robotic
yeah.
shero. I didn't meet her until later.
Yes.
So
Mm.
I was kind of
All
like
of our sheroes.
right. So I was like the blind leading the blind. So I really got to say, I tell people it was the grace of God. I think it was the grace of God that got me to my PhD.
Mm.
And after 6 years, it took me 6 years to get my PhD, and that was after having 2 bachelor's degrees and a master's. I was at Vanderbilt from
Mm.
1997 to
Yeah,
2003. Two different topics,
But that's
added
a
on a different
typical amount of
advisor.
time though.
That's a lot of time,
it's pretty
right?
good.
And so
Yeah.
I tell
It took me
people,
7.
sis, that was a lot.
I was
That
6.5, so we got the average. I was around 6.5.
that last year or two, my advisor was like, "We got to get you out of here. You, who you telling?" And I mean, I was at the point. So it had gotten to the point. One of my advisors, I was her first PhD student, and her and I were the same age. So I'm
Wow.
writing a book about Black
That's
women.
kinda cool.
That was me and my
Yeah,
first student.
but yeah, her and I were about the
He was
same
3 days
age.
older than me.
So, but because
Oh.
so I'm writing a book about Black women in STEM, and this is going to end up in there somehow. But because of that, she had a lot like on me. Right? She didn't have tenure yet. I was her first PhD student, so she was riding me. And then, of course, I had another advisor. So they sometimes bumped heads over me and what I should be doing.
Mm.
Mm.
But one thing I started telling her my last year is I said, I'm getting tired. Y'all better get me out of here. And she loves to tell people this
Mhm.
story. And you said to me, if you don't get me out of here this next year, I'm gonna go have me some babies and get on welfare. I'm not playing with you. Get me out of here. I'm tired. And
Did you
so
really say that?
I did. So she's a white woman from New York with red hair, and she loves to tell people. I never forget that day you told me if you don't get me out of here, I'm going to get some babies and get on welfare. I was like, get me out of here. I'm tired. And so she's like, you remember that
My
day you
head
told me you were gonna get on
hurts.
welfare and go have some babies? I said, I sure do. But yeah, I was like, get
It
me
worked.
out of
I'm
here.
out.
But
So, what was the research that
Hilarious.
drove you almost to welfare?
so
I don't know if
so
I wanna do that.
Oh my gosh.
so
It's
um,
hot. I didn't
so I worked in a robotics lab, and I was one of those people who I put on my statement of purpose. I want to be an educator. I didn't know that engineering education was there was any such thing because I probably should have gotten my PhD in engineering education. So I put on my statement of purpose, I'm getting my PhD as a means to an end. Robotics and controls is my
Mm.
area, but I'm doing this to be a teacher because I wanted to make it clear to them that although I'm about to be your lab rat for the next 6 or 7 years, it's not because when I leave, I want to go to a R1, I want to go to a MIT, a Stanford, a Carnegie Mellon. I had every intention of going to a HBCU, not necessarily Tennessee State, but I interviewed at Jackson State. I interviewed at Tuskegee. I interviewed at North Carolina A&T. because I knew I was getting my PhD to go and teach Black and Brown students how to survive STEM and become engineers. So my research is in human robot interaction. And I think I didn't know this at the time, but it really made sense for me because it was all about the human component or aspect of STEM. How can a human being work
Mm-hmm.
with a robot to achieve something in the world that will hopefully be impactful or beneficial to society? And that's what my research was all about, is designing, thinking about, you said computer science. One of the redhead from New York that I told about welfare was a CS professor, and my other advisor was an electrical engineering professor, because my thesis was an intersection of the two: the human computer interaction, human robot
Mm.
interaction, how to design an interface so that a person,
Mm-hmm.
even a novice, can use it and figure out how to control and drive a robot. And then the other intersection was, how do you control the robot to do what you want it to do, so that if a person is using it, they understand where it's going, they understand what it's doing, they understand how to
Mm-hmm.
make it do what you need it to do. So I designed an interface. So, and then even my mom at the time came and did my user study, so that if the robot is
Oh,
somewhere in the,
cool.
yeah, if the robot was somewhere in the engineering building, can you look at the sensors and understand where you think the robot is? Are you driving it into a wall? Is it hitting anything? Can you make it pick something up and bring it back? So, I
Mm.
did. I looked at things like mental workload, situational awareness. I did like this 3D graphical type video game. Do you understand how to look at 3D objects on a 2D space and understand what you're seeing? And then I designed something called a sensory egosphere. They actually use something similar on Robonaut at NASA, which is basically a way of representing the robot's knowledge in a graphical interface. And so that's what my research area was.
Mm.
Hmm.
But it took a while to get there,
I'm
you know.
nerding out.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Sorry, guys. That's robot competition stuff.
Listen, if you saw
And
that, can you
sorry.
edit that out?
Cut. That was my phone ringing. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I just love the fact that there's so many analogies to HCI from the HRIs
It was.
types of stuff.
Yeah.
Robotics wasn't super huge when I was at Michigan, but now like they have a
Oh, it
huge
is. It's huge there
robotics
now.
subsection.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I talked to
it's
Chad
huge now.
Jenkins at
Yeah.
Michigan. He's actually
I was
hiring
just
right
about to
now.
ask if you knew
I
Chad.
do know Chad.
Yes, he is.
Chad interviewed at Vanderbilt when I was a grad student, and because they didn't have any black professors yet, they do now. Will Robinson is there. They had me and a couple of the other black grad students actually give Chad his tour of campus just so he could talk to a black
Oh,
almost equal. So he
nice.
always remembers. He's like, I remember when I interviewed you were a grad student and you took me around. But that was one reason why it was so long for me to get out of Vanderbilt, is because I was older. I obviously had worked, and I knew how to engage with people. I knew how to teach. So all the lab tours with the kids, I did all that. So all the stuff I was doing, I taught my advisor's class when he went on trips and stuff. So it's almost
Oh,
like
that's a
being too
lot.
good is a blessing and a curse, because all that time I'm doing all that other stuff. I ain't working on no thesis, right? to get me out of there.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's like the reward for being good at things is more work.
Mhm.
It's happening at my current university, but I'm about to break that generational curse right now. I'm about to tell you that now, but that's another story.
Mm.
Next question, please.
I hear you. I started being like, whenever people ask me to do something because I'm Black and because I'm a woman, I recommend a white man. And I'm just like, why don't you ask this guy? Because, diversity isn't just my problem. It's
Yeah,
everybody's issue.
I
So,
say that at
oh,
my
you
school
can't?
all
He
the
doesn't know
time.
anything about diversity? Shouldn't he?
He should. I gave a talk at ECDA a couple of weeks ago. That's the EC Department Heads Association, and I said that very thing. I said diversity is everyone's responsibility, and I don't want to hear anymore. But I don't know anything about it, because guess what? When an Asian student comes to my office and they have a problem, I take care of it. When a white student comes to my office, they
Mm-hmm.
have a problem, I take care of it. Don't send all the black students to me, and don't send all the female students to me. I handle whoever comes to see me. And I don't want to hear this, I don't know where to start. Well, you got to start somewhere or you're never going to get anywhere. It's completely unacceptable. There
And
was
there's
one
also
black,
tons of books. There's scholarship
yeah,
in
there was
books
one
that
black
you can
woman
learn.
in the audience at my talk, and about 40 or 50 white and Asian men. And when it was over, she was like, "Sis, I didn't know you were gonna come in here and blow it up." I'm like, "Well, that's what I want." They didn't give me a criteria. They just told me to talk. And that's what I wanted to talk about. Stop putting all of the responsibility on diversity work on the Black and brown and female faculty and junior faculty in your department. I said that too. The junior faculty are not the only people who can teach freshmen.
Mhm.
First of all, they have to get tenure, they have to get promoted, they have papers and research. And freshmen, which I call 13th graders, are the ones who are most likely to
Yeah,
be
so
waiting
do
on
I.
you and hanging in your office all the time. Let the junior faculty teach those upper level classes where the seniors don't come see you so they can focus
Mhm.
on their work. But this is what I was told when I didn't have tenure and I used to complain about it. But you're good at it and the students connect with you so well. Well, how's anybody else going to get good at it if you don't have them do it?
Exactly. It's
Mm.
not fair for me to hog all of the good at it. Like, someone else can also be good at
Right.
this. I'm
And they need to
depriving
know the
someone of
senior
their
faculty in the
opportunity to get good
department.
at it.
Right. And they need to know the senior faculty in the department. They are going to have them
Mhm.
someday as well. Right.
Yeah.
So, but we can talk about that offline.
No,
100% agree.
no, I was just gonna say I love this because it really speaks to, like, what you're passionate about beyond the robots,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's not just about,
Mhm.
creating this innovative solution or introducing young people to robotics and the career opportunities they have there. It's
Yeah.
also about, for you, at least from observation from afar through social media,
Yeah.
you're really passionate about ensuring that people understand our experiences as Black people in
Yeah.
engineering.
Making
And
connections. The
I
robot
know,
is
like, after
a robot is
yeah.
for making connections. In my opinion, the robot is a hook, right? Because if someone sees a robot, oh, that's
Mhm.
cool. What does that thing do? This is what it does. But more important than that robot is you seeing a Black person over here talking to you about some STEM, right? I like to say we have a marketing
Yeah.
problem, and I can use that robot to help with the marketing problem.
Mhm.
Mm.
'Cause it will captivate people's minds. They see a
Mhm.
robot, they're like, "This is the future. The future is here. Hey,
Yeah,
Black person, tell me about this robot." Like, it gets the message all in this one
correct.
diverse,
Yeah.
cohesive bundle.
And then if I
Yeah,
can
I feel
show
like,
you that you
Kyla,
can
you
do
meant
something, yeah. Uh-oh.
mhm.
And then
No,
if
you're
I can
fine.
show you
I
that
was
you
just gonna
can do
say,
something.
I think, Kyla mentioned recently about how, you've got these opportunities for people to learn about computing from us. Like, we have these interventions where it's like, "Hey, come all you Black children and learn about,
Yeah,
Right.
like, this
yeah,
cool computer science stuff." And then you have someone who's not us teaching them
Yes.
the technical pieces of the
it's
work, and
hard,
it's like,
it's
"No,
hard.
we wanna be those people," right? Like,
Yeah.
we wanna show them that we're not only great at, like, talking to the students and engaging with the students, but we also have this technical knowledge that
Yes.
we
Yeah,
can pass
yeah.
to them too.
Yeah, we're
Let me get
also
your opinion
technically
on
sound.
something.
Like, there's let's hear it.
So I do Black and robotics workshops, and we try to focus on Black children, but whoever we've done them for adults, we've done them for kids, I've done them for HBCU students, I've done them for whoever. And we had someone come who said this is really good, and I think part of diversifying STEM is we need to see more of you guys teaching white children or Asian children so that they can see Black people in leadership. And I kind of balked at that. And the reason I balked at it is because I feel like that's what I do every day at work. And I feel like they have lots of
Right.
opportunities. I understand we want them to see Black people in positions of power and role models and all that. And that's great. But that's not what I want to do with Black and robotics. I want to see more Black and brown children having
Mhm.
success in STEM, and if that's somebody else's diversity mission to go and do a lot of those types of workshops for white kids and Asian kids so they can see more Black people in the positions of authority, then that's them. That's not where my ministry is, Jeremy. My ministry, using your word.
Right.
My ministry is to see more of
And
us
why do
do
they need
it.
a proof of concept?
I don't
Why do
know.
they need us as
But,
a proof of
but he
concept?
pitched that idea to
Because I
me,
feel like too,
and I was like, no,
yeah,
no,
it's a
no.
mess. Like that, none of that makes sense because also you're not thinking about what throwing them into this lion's den means. Like being a Black woman who is usually the first
Yeah,
technical
yeah,
teacher that is of color and or a woman for a bunch of white people, that in itself is just bad. Like, you will have no idea how much in a classroom students within the first few weeks, not you have no idea, but the listeners have no idea if they don't teach, how much students try to throw things at you to see if they can catch you off guard or see if they know
They
more
do.
than you
They
know. And
do.
it's tiring. I'm like, look, little boy, I have been coding since before you were born. Before you were born, Travis. So anyway,
Ooh,
that's
not
not his
name
name,
checking.
but
We're
still.
not name checking, are we?
That is name. That is name. But still,
Okay.
it's one of those, like, you don't want to make
Yeah.
someone an example as, oh, this is the first, this is the first, because there's so many arrows that get just
Yeah.
pointed at you from that moment. And like you said, that's not my ministry to be a proof of concept that I exist for someone else so that they can try to throw things at me and see if they can get me off my game. I'm about what you're saying, making sure more Black and brown kids actually know this is a topic and a field.
And if my time is limited and my talents are these special talents that I've curated, I'm like Issa Rae said, I'm rooting for everything Black and I'm giving them to Black people with my time, talents, and treasures. When those few things I do have
Yeah.
left to give after my day at work, I want to give them to who I want to give to. I'm going to tell you guys one quick story and then I know we probably need to wrap. When I first got to Rose Holman, I had already been teaching for 3 years at Tennessee State and I had already been teaching for 2 years at ITT Tech and University Phoenix because I taught engineering technology while I was wrapping up my PhD. And there was a white male student. He ended up being like cum laude or like second or third when he graduated from Rose Holman. He would come to me after class every day where like a little sheet, like a post-it note, where he had been scribbling notes while I would teach, where he would give me pointers on how to improve my lectures. And he would do this after class every day, my first semester there, my first quarter there. And I would look at him like, oh, what you doing? He's like, well, I know you're new, so I figure I'd give you some pointers on how to teach. And it's because
Mm-mm.
in their minds, we are not qualified to be where we are. So I had to start saying things like, do you think I just walked in here out of the park?
Right.
Did they hire me because of my good looks? And I had them put on the evaluations, I'm not racist or anything, but please stop picking people because they're double minorities to check a box. Never was quite
Are
sure
you
whether it was him or
serious?
not, but yes,
You know it was.
it was.
He sound like a Travis too.
Travis.
He sound like a Travis.
Yeah.
I can't, like, and that's the thing. Why are we throwing people into that to be like, hey, you be this proof of concept for this person who's already made up in their mind that they don't think you should be here? Like, that's not what I'm spending my cycles on.
Right, but the problem then becomes,
I have a lot of thoughts.
oh, Jeremy, yeah. But the problem becomes, do we stay there because those few brown and Black students need to see us, and actually the white students do also need to see us, or do we take our talents, like LeBron said, and go to a HBCU? I think we do both. I think we're needed everywhere in all these spaces, but not to be
Yeah.
mistreated, right? And so I had to stay
Yeah,
there.
I think that that's a unique scenario where it's like, I mean, I need to tell my chair this nonsense is happening and we need to figure this out. Like, that's abuse.
Correct.
Yes, it is.
Correct. I agree.
And no one should have to deal with that at their job. Like having a child essentially tell you
Correct.
that
Correct. A
you
child. Mm-hmm.
should should receive instruction from them
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on something they aren't trained to do.
And we
The
Like
started
what
out, like I said, I
audacity.
went from
yes,
night to
that's
day. I went from Tennessee State, maybe one non-Black person in class, to zero Black people in class, other than maybe me. And then
Mm.
this fool walking down front to tell me how to teach.
mm-mm.
That's a hot mess. That
Mm-hmm.
is a hot mess. I had a student who literally sat under my desk because I would not change his grade. And I'm thankful for the other students who were like, look, she's the person who's grading this. So you need to do it the way she asked you to. Or because it's a 500-person class, it's this intro class.
What?
And I'm like, I have all of these things to grade. You need to put it in this format so the auto grader can read it and won't have no problems. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
you're stifling my creativity. Okay, let your creativity give you a grade. Go take an art class. This ain't it.
I want to know how you got that child from under the desk.
I didn't. I let him stay there. I would throw questions to him. I'd be like, "Hey, this for loop is what you say over there? Oh, nothing. You still big man? Okay, anyway." Like he got up eventually, but
Ooh, that's some bratty
we
for
gonna
you.
move
That's
on.
some brat behavior.
Oh, yes.
Oh my
Super
word.
brat. Never probably had a Black instructor, anybody they had to answer to, quote, unquote, that was Black, and he was
Mhm.
not taking it very well.
Yeah,
I think this is a good segue into the Black and X network movement. And
Yeah.
I
yeah,
think a lot of this came from nonsense like what y'all are talking about,
it
like,
did.
where it's like, my experience is not your experience, and y'all need to recognize
Yeah.
our excellence and what we do. And we might need to invite Carlotta back and
Yes,
maybe,
absolutely.
friend of the
Yeah.
podcast, Dr. Monica Cox, to
Yes,
join and
Yeah,
have
let's
a
do that.
unpacking of that. Cause
Yeah, we'll do the Black and
yeah.
X movement
I'm
with
here for it.
Monica and Tahira, if Tahira can make it. Have you guys had
Yes.
Tahira on yet?
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
No, we have not. Yeah,
Yeah,
we should
invite
have
me
her
and
too.
Monica
wait,
and
which
Tahira
Tahira?
back. Yeah, and the 3 of us together can talk about the Black
Okay.
and X stuff.
I love it. Wait,
Yeah.
Tahira at Purdue, right?
Yes,
We went to
Tahira
grad
Reed
school
Smith.
together. She's the
Yeah, she's the only
best.
Tahira I know because
Yes.
her, I, and Monica started. And actually, I'll tell you this story really quick. That Black in engineering was birthed because during the pandemic and everybody was at home. Monica had come up with the idea with Tequila Harris at Georgia Tech to write some Black
Mhm.
women in STEM books, and we were sitting in one of our collaborative meetings brainstorming about what the books were going to be about. And then I think I mentioned, or somebody mentioned, did you guys see what was going on Twitter this weekend with the whole Black and the Ivory stuff? And then we just started talking
Oh,
about
yeah.
how all the Black and the Ivory stuff was mostly people in the humanities and political science.
Mhm.
And because I was scrolling through it because I wanted to see what the Black engineers were going to say or Black CS, and there wasn't any. And I thought about God, even in the Black
Mhm.
academic venting space, we're so few that probably the people who do have those degrees are scared to say something. And that's kind of how the Black and
Yeah.
engineering
Yeah.
thing started. We're like, God, we can't even speak
Yeah.
when it's going off on Twitter. So we were like, we need a community where we can
Mhm.
all speak for each other in some safe way.
Mhm.
Well, we're good. This is gonna be a to be continued
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
would love to have the founders of this to be able to
Yeah,
come on and speak about it, and people can know how they can get involved and what it means. So,
Well,
absolutely.
I just wanna say, like, it's really truly a pleasure that you joined us, and I think I would be remiss not to mention, like, how amazing it is to have an endowed chair and professor,
oh, professor, like the
Look at
highest
God.
full
professor
Don't
you
look at
could
me.
be.
Look at God. Look at God.
um,
Same thing I said about my PhD. Look at
be with
God.
us.
Look at God. Because even the
Look at
endowed
them.
chair is a story. I don't know. Everything
Mm,
I do, it's kind of like being having an only child. Everything I do with my child, it's the first time. So every day I'm learning and doing
mhm.
something I've never done before. So this is the whole thing. There's
Yeah.
no PhDs in my family. There's no engineers in my family. So when I applied for that endowed chair 4 or 5 years ago and I didn't get it, I moved on. And I had a colleague come to me and go, "Let me give you some advice. Your application didn't work because you didn't write your budget right. You didn't do da da da." And this was
Mm,
actually a white woman ally because I would have never applied to be an endowed chair again because I was like, obviously, I don't know how to do it. So, oh well. But that's what that comes from having sponsors and advocates and mentors and
mhm.
people in those spaces.
And
Because
accomplices.
she came to me and was like, "Let me show you the way." Same with tenure. I didn't know how to write a tenure portfolio.
Mhm.
I had a white male colleague who did robotics. He got tenure the year before I did and was like, "Here, take a look at my portfolio." Because people are real funny about you looking at things like their tenure portfolio.
Yes, they are. They
And
do not
so,
want you
of
to, even
course,
if they already got tenure.
correct. So I now have given people my PTR portfolio, my full professor portfolio. You can have anything you ask me for because it was people who gave that
Yep.
stuff to me and I now pay that forward. But so that's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So everything that I have gotten, including that PhD, as I say, look at God, because I didn't have nobody to follow in none of those footsteps. Writing a dissertation. My
Mm,
advisor was like, "You don't know how to write a technical paper." Well, boo, where would I have learned how to write a technical paper?
right.
So
You're supposed to teach me. This is an
Yes.
apprenticeship. You're
Yes.
no,
supposed to teach
no,
me.
That
she
was his
didn't.
job
Right.
She just ripped me a
or
new
her
one until
job.
I finally figured it out. That's all. Love you, Dr. Adams. Not
Wow.
Stephanie. Love you, Dr. Adams. The other Dr. Adams. But yeah, no. But you're right, and because you got to remember this other thing. PhD does not teach you how to mentor. It does not teach you how to teach. It does not teach you how to be a good
Mm.
person to
Nope.
connect. I've gone
Nope.
to about 12 engineering education and teaching workshops over my lifetime because I wanted to hone my craft and be good at that. But how many PhDs who do you think are going to
Mhm.
go do that? So you got our PhD advisors
They
and
just jump into the classroom.
they just show up. They don't know how to do
Yeah, and
that.
say, "I'm smart. Get what's inside my head."
Yeah,
"Oh, you
yeah,
didn't get it?
absolutely.
Something wrong with you."
Yeah, you're right.
Well, again, thank you,
Yes,
and
thank
So
you so
welcome.
much, Carlotta. We look forward to having you back along with everyone else, and
Thank
this
you.
was
It's been
great.
fun.
I
Make sure you tag me when it comes out so
Yay.
I can amplify on all my socials. I have socials.
Please do. Yes, you're so
Speaking
sweet.
of, how can people find you on your socials? Where
Oh,
are you and how do they find you?
well, the great thing about the fact that I kind of made up the word NoireSTEMinist is now if you Google that, all my stuff comes up because I think I'm the one who uses
That's
it the
gonna be the
most.
name of this episode.
Oh, I hope so. But you can
Mm.
also on Twitter and on Instagram and on TikTok. It's
Okay.
DRCABERRY. So, but yeah, I also have other channels, but that one is on all of
ERCABERRY.
BERRY,
Okay.
as in berry, as in strawberry. But yeah, I'm on all the socials because I felt like if I'm going to be hashtag my STEM is for the streets, then I got to go into the streets to meet people where they
Yes.
are. And our teenagers are on TikTok. The babies are on TikTok. So, but I'm on TikTok.
My
Oh,
step is
okay.
for the streets. I love it.
I don't even know what to do with that
I've
one.
had too much time, too much fun today. Like today's been
Yeah.
exhausted, but this is like the high point right
This
Oh,
now.
is
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you too for having me. You're beautiful. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see how you
Likewise.
you snip and edit this into something presentable.
Oh, you'll see.
I know it's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
happen. I know
That's
you're
not
gonna get it.
that's not our job
That's
to
not your
handle that,
job.
but
Allison's amazing,
That's
and she does a
Allison's
great
ministry,
job.
honey. Hi, honey.
Yeah.
Talk about right on time. What's the
Aw.
baby's name? What's
Hi, Amara.
this is Amara. Amara, you can't hear them, can
AMARA?
you? Here,
Is that
let's
right?
see.
AMARA?
Mhm.
My daughter's middle name is
Let's see. Oh, no, we need
AMAYA,
this in,
Amaya.
but
Aw, she's a
Oh,
pretty.
that's
She's so
cool.
pretty.
you wanna say hello?
God, talk about being right
Say
on time.
hello.
We finished that right on time.
Hi, Amara.
Hi. She's trying
I
to
know
wake
you
up.
hear me.
She's trying to wake up. Look at her saying no.
Say hi.
I know you hear me. If you can
Oh,
know, you can hear.
she's so cute. She said, I'm trying to wake up. I ain't got time for y'all. What'd she say? She said something.
How was your nap? Say hi, Kyla. You ain't
Oh,
gonna say
you
hi to
don't know me
Kyla?
now? You don't know me now? We
She
watched
just saw
Encanto.
her this
Yeah.
weekend
Oh,
and
were you in Florida
walked
this
right up
weekend?
to her and gave her a
Oh, you
hug.
did say you
Yes.
were in Florida this weekend, didn't you?
Well, we live here, so
I thought you were
we were
somewhere else.
both
Didn't it say Clemson? No, you're in
yeah, I
Florida
was in
too?
Clemson at first. I
Oh,
was there like a year and a half, and now I'm at UF. So,
you two
but
are
we
at the
did the
same
Black
school.
Computer Conference. Mhm.
Oh, was the Black Computer
Yep, we're
Conference in
both
Florida as
here. Oh
well?
yeah, Jeremy, you can hit the stop button.
Oh, I can't
What were
tell.
you
Oh,
saying?
So the Black Computer